Amen. We're going to be in Revelation chapter 5 this morning. Revelation chapter 5. Last week we ended in chapter 4, as you could imagine. And I was thinking this week as I studied that about a phrase that the worship pastor at camp always likes to use. He says it over and over, but I'm not going to ask our students if they remember it because that would just disappoint me. And that is, you praise what you prize. You praise what you prize. It's a great phrase to think about and to meditate on. You praise what you prize. And in the end of chapter 4, the elders around the throne, these 24 elders, are praising what they prize. They say in verse 11, "Worthy are you, our Lord and God, to receive glory and honor and power. For you created all things, and by your will they existed and were created." We saw from that passage, just from that alone last week, that Jesus is on the throne. Jesus has a plan. Jesus is strong enough to work out that plan. Now, I know at least two of you, I hope more of you, but at least two of you, at some point during the week, had to remind yourself Jesus has a plan. Jesus is on the throne. Jesus is working out this plan. He is strong enough to see it to completion. That was a good reminder. We had to remind ourselves in our own home, my own home, of that very fact this week. And I pray that you did as well. As we turn, this topic of worth there in the song in verse 11 is only going to ratchet up once we get into chapter 5. We saw the word throne come up over and over in chapter 4. Now in chapter 5, the word is going to be worthy. So look at verse 1 with me. "Then I saw in the right hand, who was seated on the throne, a scroll written within and on the back and sealed with seven seals." John's focus zooms in on the Father who is seated on the throne, and in his right hand there is this scroll. The scroll is a symbol. Revelation is all about symbols, and this scroll is a symbol of the plan that God has for the rest of the world. How will He bring about the redemption that His saints are so longing for? How will He bring about the justice that our world so desperately needs? It is coming through what is in the scroll. In many ways, the scroll is a picture of the rest of the book of Revelation. How will the story end? Why is it written on the front and on the back? Because there's no room for anyone to make additions or corrections to this scroll. The plan is set in stone. There will not be, I don't know if this was the way it was for you, but a paper you get back and it's got this red marking all over it from the teacher. There will be no red markings on this scroll. There's no one who will edit it, no one who will change it, no one who will make a suggestion. How about we, slightly alter this here? No, this scroll is set in stone. Every jot, every tittle, every moment, every move, God has it all planned out. Every bill that will be passed in some Singaporean Senate, every army movement in South Sudan, every movie filmed in Spain, every book read in Sydney is all in the plan. He's got it all mapped out. For people living in an anxious culture, let me just say this one more time. Jesus has the plan, right? It's on His plan. This God who knows the hairs on our head has it all mapped out. But then the problem comes in verse 2. "I saw a mighty angel," John says, "proclaiming with a loud voice, 'Who is worthy,'" there's that word again, "'who is worthy to open the scroll and to break its seals?'" And you can only imagine John looking around. Who's going to come forward? Who will be the one who can enact this plan, who can see it all to fruition? The things that we've been longing for, the prayers that we've been crying out for. Who will actually put the ball in motion to see the redemption of creation come to its fulfillment? And though the search is extensive, no one comes. Verse 3, "No one in heaven or on earth or under the earth was able to open the scroll or to look into it." No angel, no politician, no professor, no pastor. No one comes. No one comes. No one is able to make this all happen, to bring it all about. Everything that we are deeply longing for cannot be fulfilled by anyone in heaven or on earth or under the earth. And so John does what you and I would do too. Verse 4, "And I began to weep loudly, because no one was found worthy to open the scroll or to look into it." Why is John weeping? Well, I wonder if John is thinking about these 7 churches that the whole book of Revelation is written to. John was a pastor there at Ephesus, and so he would know about these other 6 churches and care about them deeply. He might have even planted some of those churches. He's probably thinking about the sacrifices that they have made, the suffering that these churches he loved were facing, the sins that many of them had so hardly let go of after much toil and much pain. And if no one is able to open the scroll, if no one is able to complete the plan that God has made, if no one can finish it all off, then all of those things, all the suffering, all the sins they've left behind, all of the pain, it's all for nothing. I was in a philosophy class freshman year. If anybody ever goes to college, don't take a philosophy class at 8 a.m. on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It's just not a great idea. But that's just not off topic. But in this intro to philosophy class at 8 a.m., one day the professor introduces this story from Aristotle. I don't exactly remember all the background. But then he asked this question. I went to a Baptist college. And so he said this: if you could be convinced that Christianity is not true, would you fear death? If you could be convinced Christianity was not true, would you fear death? There's a lot of discussion about it, about the people that I would leave behind and all those things. And finally, one guy raises his hand and says this: no, I wouldn't fear death at all. In fact, if you could convince me that Christianity is not true, I would probably be suicidal. Because it would mean that all the pain and all the suffering and all the heartache and all the terrible news that we see has no meaning. Everything is broken. And all the good things that we can build up for are one day going to burn and die. He says, I wouldn't fear death at all. I would long for it. Because if there is no end to the plan, then all hope is lost. We have no hope. We have no future. There is no good in this life. So John weeps. Verse 5 tells us this: one of the elders said to me, weep no more. Behold. Behold. The book of Revelation is all about beholding, but more specifically, always beholding the right thing. You see, as John writes Revelation, he knows that one of our problems is that we always want to look at, we always want to focus on the wrong things. Y'all, I don't know if y'all are like this, but I've noticed that when kids are watching something that they like, you could be telling them the house is on fire, no clue, right? You could be telling them there is cake that they can have as much as they want of, no clue, right? You almost have to pause it or hey, right? And I'm glad some of y'all woke up at that. But to just get them to stop focusing on this. But all of us do that too. We get so fixated on something, usually the wrong thing, and it's so hard to get our perspective to change, to look somewhere else. And that's exactly what Revelation is all about. Getting us to look and to focus on the right things. And this elder is telling John, you're not looking at the right thing. So he says in verse 5, one of the elders said to me, behold, weep no more. Look at what? The Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has conquered so that he can open the scroll and its 7 seals. Now the emphasis in this verse, the emphasis on what the elder is saying in the Greek is actually on the fact that he conquered, not on the fact that he is a lion. And that makes sense, really, when you think about these 7 letters that we just walked through in chapters 2 and 3. In every single one of them, Jesus offers a promise to the one who conquers. And now we get to meet the one who has conquered. We get to meet the one who actually accomplishes this victory for us. That, friends, is the rhythm of the gospel. It is not that we work really hard and we get to win like Jesus does because of all of our hard work, or because of all our brains or creativity. It is that Jesus accomplishes the complete victory, and because we are in Him, because we stick with Him, we too will conquer. Jesus has conquered. And this elder describes the conqueror as the Lion of the tribe of Judah, which goes back to Genesis 49, where Jacob is blessing his sons. And he says to Judah, verse 9, Judah is a lion's cub. From the prey, my son, you have gone up. He stooped down. He crouched as a lion, and as a lioness, who dares rouse him? Jacob is saying, Judah, you will be a warrior. In fact, you will be a warrior like a lion. No one's going to want to be the prey, Judah, that stands up against you. You will hunt. And that is who you are. And because you are this great warrior, Judah, you will get to be the king. The scepter will never depart from your hand. He also describes him not only as the Lion of Judah, but as the root of David, which echoes back to Isaiah 11. In Isaiah 11, Isaiah prophesies, "In that day the root of Jesse, who shall stand as a signal for the peoples, of him shall the nations inquire. His resting place shall be glorious." That sounds so nice, a glorious resting place. But if you'll back up and look at the context, you find how this root of Jesse, which is David's dad, so it's a picture of the line of David, the one who comes from the line of David. How does he accomplish, how does he secure this glorious resting place? Well, verse 4 tells us, "With righteousness he shall judge the poor, and decide with equity for the meek of the earth. He shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he shall kill the wicked." Again, he's a warrior. Both the Lion of Judah and the root of Jesse is a picture of him being a warrior, this conqueror. The elder is being clear. John, don't worry. John, stop crying. Look at what I'm telling you to look at. There is a victorious warrior in front of you. In fact, he is the ultimate Judah, whose hand shall be on the neck of his enemies. To him shall be the obedience of all peoples. He is great, David's greater son. Saul might have slain his thousands, but David his 10,000s, and the lion even more. This is what John is expecting to look up and see. But that's not what John sees. Verse 6, "Behold, between the throne and the four living creatures and among the elders, I saw a lamb standing, as though it had been slain, with 7 horns and with 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent out into all the earth." John is expecting a military leader. He's expecting a lion who ravishes, and he finds a lamb who lays down his life. You know, the Old Testament talks about lambs quite a bit, so different commentaries and theologians debate over, well, which lamb is John seeing or referring to in Revelation 5? Is he referring to the lamb of the Passover, whom, when Israel was trying to get out of Egypt, God was commanding them to get out of Egypt, he sends the 10 plagues, and the last plague is the death of the firstborn son. But if you take a lamb and you keep that lamb for 3 days, and then on the 3rd day you slaughter that lamb, eat that lamb, and then smear its blood over your doorpost, the angel of death will pass over, hence the name Passover, he will pass over your house and spare your firstborn son. Is this the lamb of Revelation 5? Or is he the lamb of the Levitical law, where you get convicted of your sin, you realize what you've done, you know that you need to make a way for forgiveness for what you have done, and so you go and get a lamb, you take it to the temple priest, you put your hands on this priest, you lay your sin into that lamb, and then the priest slaughters that lamb and burns it completely to show you what your sin has now done. It has gone away. It is done for. It has been paid for through the death of this lamb. Or, the third option, is this lamb the lamb of Isaiah 53, who was oppressed and afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth? Like a lamb that is led to the slaughter, like a sheep that before its shearers is silent, so he opened not his mouth. And the answer is quite easily D, right? Anytime you're taking a test, there's 2 good options, 3 good options. It might just be all the above. That's what we've got here. It's all the above. He is the Lamb who powerfully lays down his life to pay for the sins of his people so that the punishment for that sin might pass over them. The Lamb who powerfully lays down his life to pay for the sins of his people so that the punishment might pass over them. The Lamb is slain, but he is standing up. Did you notice that? A lamb standing, but slain. Slain, but standing. He is victorious, but he's been struck down, but he's not been destroyed. He's been killed, but he is no longer dead. He has tasted death, but he defeated it. And he stands now, almost mocking death, though he has the scars to show it. He is the risen one. This is how the Lamb conquers. He conquers. He wins. He purchases the victory by laying down his life. In chapter 4, we saw that the throne of God is the center of all creation, and the cross of God is the center of all history. Everything changes on that. Everything moves based on that. Sam Storms, a pastor, has said, up until the time that Jesus Christ returns to this earth in the second coming, victory is achieved not by the sword, but by a sacrifice. And this lamb has 7 horns. Horns stand for power and authority. And there's 7 of them to show the completeness of that. There's 7 days in a week. It's the fullness, the completeness. and he has all power. He has 7 eyes. Eyes represent insight and knowledge, and Jesus has all the wisdom and all the knowledge and all the insight. Because he laid down his life, he is able to take the scroll. He has the ability to enact the future of God because Jesus will roll it out. If Revelation is all about seeing the right things, now John gets to see through dried tears. His eyes are probably a little red, a little puffy. And now, in verse 8, we see what he sees. And when he had taken the scroll, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders that we met in chapter 4, they fall down before the Lamb, each of them holding a harp and a golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of the saints. This is how they respond. Now, we could look at a lot of different details. I want to focus on the bowls of incense. John communicates to these 7 churches and now to us. When I got to see the throne room, there was something in the smell. You know, everybody's got a smell. Like if you know your kids, you could not know which house your kids spent the night at, get a whiff of that bag and be like, oh, I see you're at Russ's house, right? Because each house has a smell. And if you could get a bag of the throne room of God and sniff into it, you know what it'd smell like? Your prayers. Those half-hearted prayers that you didn't really want to pray, but you knew you needed to pray them anyways. Those difficult prayers that you keep praying over and over again, and you're wondering, is Jesus even listening? Those prayers that you prayed with tears running down your cheeks, all of them, John says, you should know that's what heaven smells like. This is who our God is. He loves to make the scent of His throne the prayers of His people. What a beautiful picture that is. And they're singing a new song. A new song. Why are they singing a new song? And the answer is quite simple. Because Jesus is worthy of new songs. Now, we read in Ephesians 5, it's also in Colossians 3, that we should keep singing the Psalms, which are really old songs, 1,500 years, 3,500 years old songs, actually. So He's worthy of old songs, and He's worthy of new songs. That's the whole point. He's worthy of all the kinds of different songs. And when we understand that God is on the throne, when we understand that the Lamb has conquered through His death and His resurrection and has redeemed His children, this is what we will do. We will give Him all the worship that He deserves. And so verse 9, this is what they sing. They sang a new song saying, "Worthy are you to take the scroll and to open its seals, for you were slain, and by your blood you ransomed people for God from every tribe and language and people and nation, and you have made them a kingdom and priests to our God, and they shall reign on the earth." Do you see what John sees? Jesus can bring about the completion of God's plan. The completion of the justice that we so long for. The wicked that we see on our television set. And we wonder, who is going to fix this? And yes, justice would be good in the short term. But ultimate justice will only be had because the Lamb will bring the plan to completion. When will Jesus heal us? These bodies that we live in. Will Jesus heal these relationships that we are struggling with? When He brings the plan to completion, so He will be worshipped by all kinds of sinners. Not just some kinds of sinners, not a certain kind of sinner, but people from every tribe and language and people and nation. People that speak different languages, people that have different skin tones, people who come from different places with different cultures. Why? Again, the answer is very simple. Because God is worthy of them all. He's worthy of new songs and old songs. He's worthy of English songs and Spanish songs and Arabic songs and Chinese songs. He's worthy of them all. And so these creatures and these elders give Him the worship that He is worth. And then John sees more. In verse 11, "Then I looked, and I heard around the throne, and the living creatures and the elders," the ones we met in chapter 4, "the voice of many angels, numbering myriads of myriads and thousands of thousands, sang with a loud voice, 'Worthy is the Lamb who was slain to receive power and wealth and wisdom and might and honor and glory and blessing.'" Now, my translation says myriads and myriads. Yours might say 10,000 by 10,000. All right, let's think about that for just a second. Because big numbers are really hard for the human mind to really grasp, right? 10,000 times 10,000. I'm going to show you a little math trick. If it's 1 followed by zeros, you can just put a 1 and then just write all the zeros that are there, right, when you're multiplying. So that's 1 with 8 zeros, which is 100 million angels around the throne plus thousands of thousands, whatever that means. 100 million angels. I said we struggle with big numbers, so let me help you. I did the math this morning. If every SEC football stadium was filled to the brim, 100% capacity, you would be at 1.3 million people, and that includes Texas and Oklahoma, the two new schools, right? That includes all 16, right? 1.3 million. You would need 1,200 SEC stadiums. 1,200 SEC stadiums just to have enough room to fit all the angels that John says he sees around the throne. 1,200 football stadiums. And John says, I saw them all. And then he adds, and thousands of thousands. Basically, just to be like, they were everywhere, right? You've never seen anywhere close to this amount of people. And by the way, it's not like he counted. I did the math on this too. If he would have counted one angel every second, it would have taken him 3 years to count 100 million angels. So it's not like he was counting. He was just like, they were everywhere. There's people everywhere. 100 million angels, all singing to the Lamb that he is worthy. He's worthy of receiving power and wealth and wisdom and might and honor and glory and blessing. He's worthy of all of it. But notice this. These are angels singing. Angels. Why is that interesting? Because angels don't know what the guilt of sin feels like. Which means that angels don't know what it feels like to be redeemed. Angels have never been baptized. They've never come out of the water or finished a prayer where they know that they just gave their life to Jesus and they never have to worry about the gates of hell. And these angels who have never experienced salvation are saying, listen, the Lamb is worthy because of what he has done. And they're singing with a loud voice, John says, even though they don't know what salvation feels like. And yet John is not done. This time, doesn't say he sees anything, but he does hear something. And it's not the elders or the angels. No, in verse 13, I heard every creature in heaven and on earth and under the earth and in the sea and all that is in them saying, to him who sits on the throne and to the Lamb be blessing and honor and glory and might forever and ever. He says all of them, all the creatures in heaven and on earth and under the earth and even in the sea. That means every penguin, every elephant, every giraffe, every jellyfish, every armadillo, every hummingbird, every kangaroo, every blue whale, and every human being all joined together in singing this. By the way, did you notice? Look at this sometime this week if you're interested in this. We have no clue how many different kinds of creatures there are. Not just how many there are, how many species there are. You go look it up. Like, the guesses are not even close. Like, our estimates that NASA and all these other big, smart people have done, we're not sure if it's if there's 8 billion species or 800 billion species. We have no clue how many creatures God has all made. And John says, in this moment, I got to hear every single one of them singing to the Lamb because he's worthy of this. And notice what they're singing. You might not have caught it, but you'll notice in the repetition, the angels, this 100 millions of angels, finish with these 4 things that he is worthy of: might and honor and glory and blessing. And so what these creatures are doing is they're responding, they're echoing the songs of the angels, and they're going, the angels are right. He is worthy of those things. And so they just kind of repeat, like you might repeat a refrain or you might repeat the last line of a song. So too these creatures are singing back to him, all blessing, all honor, all glory, all might, forever and ever. You know, Paul says that creation is groaning, waiting for redemption. And I would just love to have been there the first time that Paul and John got to talk about this. Because what Paul says creation was groaning, John says, and I got to hear them breathe a sigh of relief. That redemption was coming. That redemption was sure. This groaning that they were struggling with. The pain that even the insects and animals are wrestling with, John says they know that redemption is coming because the Lamb has the scroll. That is amazing. Because he has conquered through his death and his burial and his resurrection. He won the battle over the earth. He has defeated Satan and sin and death and hell, our 4 great enemies. So he alone can bring about the redemption. And listen, we're going to see, stay with us, keep coming back, because we're going to walk through the rest of this book, and we're going to see, well, how does Jesus do that? That's what the rest of the book is all about. That's what these 7 seals are all about. But for today, we can hang our hat on this. Jesus has won, and because he has won, our redemption is secure. Now listen, yesterday, I'm going to give a shout out to a couple people. Yesterday, Georgia Tech had a great victory, but that win was never secure. I mean, literally, you had to like check the scoreboard, make sure there's no time left, make sure it actually went through, make sure it was deep enough, there were flags. I mean, and until like ESPN posted, you're like, no clue, right? For just a host of reasons, I was having to just listen to it, and I was also keeping up with it on ESPN. And ESPN, the app, has this thing where it tells you like what percentage each team has of winning the game at any particular point. And it was literally like flipping back and forth. Tech has a 65% chance. Then the next play, Florida State has a 54% chance. It was going back and forth and back and forth. Our victory is not like that, right? Our victory is more like the victory at the end of a basketball game where one team is up by like 60 and there's 2 minutes left, right? And every coach, every player, even every fan at this point is like, this is over. I mean, even just mathematically, this game is over. It is impossible. We are just waiting for the clocks to hit zero so that we can get a shower and go home. And that too is where Christians find ourselves. The victory is done. It is over. It is accomplished. We are just waiting for the time when we get to go home. Because this is not up for debate. And if that is true, listen, here's where it gets close to home. If that is true, then this is not a God that you can just tack onto the rest of your life like you're at some buffet, right? You got your little platter or whatever, and you come up, you're like, yeah, I'll take a good career. That sounds nice. Yeah. Oh, a nice house. Love one. With a good yard, even better, right? I'll take a beautiful wife. That sounds good. Yeah, sure, great. Oh, you could throw some Jesus on top of that? Yeah, sure, I'll take some Jesus. Why not? What could it hurt? No, no. A lamb who is worthy like this, when we see him for who he really is, we'll respond like the elders do in verse 14. The four living creatures said, Amen, and the elders fell down and worshiped him. They fall down and worship him. They submit to his rule and reign. They radically are willing to change their very existence around this Lamb and what he says and where he will lead. Whatever he says, they will go. Not just, we're willing to change an hour and a half on Sunday mornings, Jesus. Not just, I'll give you 10 minutes in my chair with my coffee and Bible, Jesus. No, every action, every thought, everything, you get to decide where we go from here. Because you are worthy of it all. You know, I wish we had time this morning to just talk about all the conversations and all the stories that we had with Tinley that led to today. Because they're just cool stories, just here and there, about just how God was just working in her little heart when cousins' dogs die, and movies are watched, and Sunday school lessons are had. Just God just moving, just here and there. But every time that conversation kind of came up, at some point along the way, you could see her little heart, her little soul, fallen as it might be, pulled back, and she wasn't ready to go all in. And so I'm going to tell you something that you're going to kind of cringe at. When Tinley came to her mom and me and said, I'm ready to follow through, I'm ready to be baptized, I was hesitant. And I'll tell you why I was hesitant. I was hesitant because Tinley loves her mom and dad. And she would do anything, I think, to please us. Tinley loves this church. Y'all don't even understand. Tinley loves this church. I've been asked probably every other day when she gets to take communion, right? Because for the first time, because she is so excited, not just to take some juice and eat some bread, but to be a real part of Pleasant View. She's excited about voting on the minutes, right, in 4 weeks, right? You know? I mean, we're excited about that. And I know that she knows how terrifying eternity apart from Jesus could be as much as a 6-year-old can. And so to be honest with you, I was a little concerned that it was one of those reasons that she was ready to be baptized. And so I was very hesitant, so hesitant that she picked up on it. And so we came to go for a walk around the church as we do often. And I was just trying to think, how can I gauge, how can I get some idea over what her real motives are here? And so it came to me from the Lord's help, I assume. I said, T, you really want to be a college cheerleader and then be a nurse for babies, right? And that is all of life's goal. If that is who she is happy and complete. Everything is working toward those two things, being a college cheerleader and a nurse for babies. She said, yeah, that's what I want. Yeah. I said, if following Jesus means that will never happen, that you have to give up all of that, Do you still want to follow him? And we had walked around, we were right at this speed bump. And I looked down and she says, yes, because he's worth it. Because he's worth it. She saw it. She sees what John got a vision of here in Revelation 5. He's worth it. Whatever I have to give up, Dad, whatever it means, one day I'll lose. And I'll have to say no to. Jesus is worth it. And that's true for all of us, all of those who follow Jesus. Whatever we have to give up, whatever we might face, whatever storms come, whatever droughts come, Jesus is worth it. And most of us here in this room have seen that. We know that. We would pass that quiz every time. But I wonder if maybe today we needed to be reminded to get our gaze back on Jesus and all that he has done. We needed to look back on him and to be reminded that if he is worthy, if he is worth it all, then he's worthy of all of our power and all of our wealth and all of our wisdom and all of our might and effort and honor and glory and blessing. He's worth everything. I heard this story this week. I don't even know if it's true, to be honest with you. I'm going to be real with you about that. I don't know if this true is historical or true at all. But there's a story that knights who were fighting in the Crusades, when they got baptized, when they went underwater, they would hold their swords out of the water. Meaning, signifying, I am completely committed to Jesus, but not this sword. This sword can do whatever it wants, even if Jesus doesn't want me to do it. And I wonder if sometimes in our life we act like there's something we held above the water and said, I completely give my life to Jesus, but not this. And what we're saying in that moment is, you're not worthy of this, Jesus. You're not worthy of it. I get to keep this if I want it because you're not worthy of it. And for those of you who have seen Jesus, you know who he is. You know how beautiful he is, how worthy he is, and all that he accomplished for you. Is there something in your life that you have said, he's not worth it? And if it is, you can just leave that today. Right here, right now. You can just leave it and say, I've been wrong. He's worth it. I give it to him. He's worth it. Some of you have never seen that. You've never at least acted like that is who Jesus is, that he is worth giving up your life and your soul and everything that ever may come and everything that you are now and everything that you ever may one day be. And today you can say, you know what? I'm done living like that too. Jesus is right. Tilly is right. He is worth everything I could give him. When Tilly first started telling people that she got saved, the way she would have phrased it is, I surrendered to Jesus. That's it. Right? He's worth it all. And if you're ready to surrender to Jesus today, you don't have to wait, friends. You don't have to wait a single day. Because here's the truth. Whatever decision you got to make today, he is worth you doing it today. He's not worth you waiting until tomorrow. He deserves today too. Over in Luke 14, Jesus gives us kind of a hard truth, to be honest with you. He says this, which of you desiring to build a tower does not first sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Jesus was honest with us. I'll be honest with you. Following Jesus should cost you something. It will cost you something. I don't know what it is. I don't know what's going to cost you and you and you and you. But here's the one thing I do know that even a 6-year-old can hold on to. He is worth it. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Whatever decision you need to make today, I'm going to write down here while we sing. If you want to pray or talk about it, come on down. We can talk. You can also find me on your way out the door if that's more your style. I'd love to talk with you about whatever decision you need to make. Whatever it is, though, don't wait. Don't wait, not just because you might not make it tomorrow, but because Jesus is worth you making that decision today. He's worth today. He's worth August 25th in your life. Let me pray together, and then we're going to sing. God, you are worthy of it all. To the Lamb who is worthy. You're worthy of everything we could give you. There is nothing that we could give you where you would respond, I'm not worth that. You could have held on to that. I don't deserve that. God, you're worth everything that we could give up. And so, God, I pray that we would give up everything that we have, everything that we are, and everything that we could be to you today. In Jesus'